Is this yours even?
Yeah, it's yours.
So relax, enjoy.
Yeah, have fun.
Yeah. Don't worry too much. We're not that exigentes. How do you call that? Like
Picky?
exigentes. Like picky.
Can you talk from there?
Yeah.
How are you? Is it good? Good? How about now?
There we go.
What are you doing that?
Oh, that's an evaluation.
It's there.
Okay. I don't know why it's doing all that though.
So you're going to have some time to set your computer and
Mhm.
all that. So don't worry.
Okay.
Do you have an idea how long it's going to take your talk? How long is your talk? 20 minutes? And then we're going to have some time for questions.
I also want to pass this around with people this month.
Interact, right? Yeah. Cool. What is it? Oh, teacher. Nice. Cool. Good idea.
I have extra.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Let me just test something real fast. I want to get to let's get to the video. Just want to make sure I can hit enter.
Yeah, try the videos. Just the video.
Yeah. Okay. There we go. Cool.
Nice.
Cool. Cool. All right. Yeah. All right. We're good. That's all I want to make sure.
¿Por qué? ¿Cree que no se oye?
No, sí se oye, pero voy a tener que mejorar en el futuro.
For sure online.
Sí, es que estoy
Sorry, I
aprendiendo.
didn't mean to cut it off.
It's alright.
I just figured you want to share that.
Pero
with
sí está
people,
funcionando,
family,
yo lo probé
friends.
en
Seguro usted le pone, no sé.
Los primeros sí fue terrible, por eso es que yo empecé a traer el mío, que el mío es de menor calidad que este, es muy bueno.
Pero ese no lo acaban de usar como...
De ahí donde yo lo tengo mal, es que este tiene un delay.
Oh, I know, I was curious about this. I'm like,
Pero se oye bien.
Sí, porque este lo chido que tiene es que, digamos, yo lo puedo poner para que agarre todo el sonido ambiente, como bidireccional, solo lineal, y tiene cuatro.
Sorry. Most of the discussions are English.
okay, all right.
And then picture it.
All right, I'm trying.
Maybe people won't say anything.
Well, you can always make
Entonces,
it.
que se ve que se vea las personas que se
Is there
vean
both
mejor.
your presentations in there?
No, just hers, mine, not mine.
Okay. You're gonna be sick.
Yeah.
Because I have it in there, so I don't know
Okay.
if you're maybe put it in your computer. Also, I have the cards.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I'll get them from you. Cause I'm gonna be everywhere soon.
I didn't empty them.
That's fine.
Because, I don't know, my computer is not reading the files.
Okay.
I'm trying to fix
Do you have
that,
Do you have Apple?
but, no, I have a Windows.
Really? That's weird. Because I was saying my Apple won't read them because they're AVI files and it doesn't read those. So I had to download a different app that could read them, and then I download another app that transferred them into MP4s. So that's it.
Yeah, I don't know, not very good for me that decided for a year. Because I already downloaded the video.
And my Apple won't read them. They're AVI.
Files, so yeah, but I mean that's okay. I managed to work with like the Excel files you gave me.
Okay.
I just couldn't show any videos.
Oh, I'm sorry. That stinks.
Okay. Later.
This is your next project after this evening. So what exactly is this?
Categories. And I
You organize like plants or seeds? Oh, the seeds. With the seeds you organize it.
Yeah.
Veggies, flowers, greens. What's bag one?
So we
These are what they have already. So I just worked with
that
them.
was in chat.
What'd you put?
Eso es
Yeah, it's a mix of benefits.
Okay.
The one that had like
¿Dónde vive usted, Daniel?
all of these combined.
Ahí no había
Sorry,
nada.
just asking questions.
That's okay.
I'm curious.
These me parece. The yellow guys have a lot of beans in them.
Sí,
Beans?
es
Oh,
que
really?
alguien estaba preguntando si en mi casa había luz.
This is the spreadsheet example.
Porque
Oh,
Fede estaba
like what's
Yeah.
what's in each, like what's in the bag, basically? Oh, cool.
Sí,
Wow.
le pregunté que si había ido la luz.
En mi casa lo que pasa, por lo menos.
And these, I guess, are what planting instructions and things like that, or
Eso
what? Oh,
explota
nice.
uno de los
This, they purchased that.
Sí, pero
I
eso
didn't
tenía
have access to
como-
that information, so.
Uh-huh.
Porque aquí pasaba muy regularmente en este
Oh, that's
trabajo.
cool. Good job, though.
Y lo cambiamos.
Yo no sé, yo desde que me pasé a vivir aquí,
Some of them have like.
Lo que siempre pasa es que la luz se va a las 7 de la noche o a las 6 de la tarde.
The long ones. They took a long.
sí hay muchos.
No, I understand. Yeah, about the computer for so long.
Sí, nosotros de hecho le compramos un aparatito a la secadora.
No, you did.
Yeah.
And then you created QR codes.
I did. And I take them on to the bags. So that you scan and.
Bueno, y
you
tenemos
see.
That is cool. Oh, that's really cool.
una batería así, el UPS también para la red.
Although in more detail than this.
Yeah, that's
Para
what
los
all mine are just
digamos,
basic
para
bullet
los-
points. It's just me
Y el
expanding on it. So that's what I did. So I tried to keep it to 3 to 4 bullet points and then no more than that because that's too much for me.
And then this is my favorite thing that I did.
Oh, the what is it, that salve or whatever they
Sí,
the
yo creo
tonic, that's it.
que sería mejor enviarlo en la comunidad sobre la confirma de presentación y para
Phone and infection.
Really? Yeah.
I enjoy it.
No, that's cool. Yeah, yeah. Vodka is base, I guess.
Entonces, ahora compramos algunos cuadros.
Yeah, no, it looks good.
Y enviamos los correos.
I think it'll be great. All the information there. Looks good. It's very, I'd say,
Lo que no quieren es
a
como
bit more
poner
science-y
mucho.
than mine. We have more
Estas de los correos que ya
scientific,
Unas tres más.
exact scientific data for some of these, than more than I have, because really from what I see in mine, you get that kind of data.
Eso es lo que yo
Still,
creo.
that's good job. It's impressive. You're doing excellent work. I look forward to watching you get it done. It'll take you a bit to warm up. Because it did yesterday for me. It took me a sec to warm up, and then once I got rolling, I found myself talking too much. Okay. Yeah. It's just, yeah, have fun with it. Like she said, there's obviously look the wearing a hat. I'm sure it's tucked in.
No, not so sharp.
No, my friend will be here.
Okay.
She's, I don't tell her by the chocolate place. She's going to be here with her friends because they came to, they walked the Cranberry this morning. And yeah, she said they'll all be here for the presentations.
Okay.
That's okay. That sounds good.
No, my friend's here.
Oh yeah, Dunya? Yeah, cool. Your parents going to be here too? Are they coming for coffee?
La que me tiene preocupada es la
Did they know?
Yeah.
No, why did you tell them?
Es que yo la tarde son ustedes el grupo.
Es que no puede. I told him about it.
Oh,
O sea, venía a
okay.
preguntar
I would imagine.
no tiene que hacer viernes.
Only Sylvia for me because Alan's at work and the boys are at school, which I think Alejandro wasn't happy about.
Hay una charla de una muchacha que fue pasando.
Alan told me, we watch it later, it'll be online.
Como 2006, creo.
And then he had to explain
Y
what the
ella
live
hizo
streaming
investigar.
meant.
Es muy chiva, es un
But
documental.
it's live.
se llama
How can you watch it if it's live and it already happened? He's like, no, no, I can store it on the internet. It'll be live and it'll be
En personas que trabajan en agricultura en el campo. Pero es como una cosa que pasa a nivel mesoamericano. Entonces es como, ¿por qué es que
I was
pasa?
worried I had sinus infection.
¿Enfermedad de qué?
De nuestros.
It's crazy. That's
Pero es muy padre porque ella lo hizo desde la perspectiva de las personas, no es ella hablando, sino son las personas contando.
Is the lab locked now? I'm curious to see if it is.
And then Mark told you about the small interview I want to do with you.
Yes.
Are you okay with it?
Yeah, that's it. That's a yes. I just went like halfway down the stairs. I'll go to okay. Keys. Keys.
How are you introducing yourself?
I made an introduction slide, so I just basically said, as that I'm a senior student at Oregon State University, majors in wildlife sciences. Then I put, I'm a certified master herpetologist in the Amphibian Foundation. My goal is what I want to do with my career, and then, I've been in Monteverde for 10 weeks. That's all my introduction's going to be. It's my first thing before you take it seriously. Because mine goes title screen, then I put a table of contents, so I can say, this is what we're, start here, and we're going to move to this, then this, and this. The reason why I did that is because I found a site, because I wanted to download the theme for my presentation, and it downloaded it, but then it had like a whole layout, so I just kind of followed most of the layout, and that quotes in there too. Two quotes from two people that from Steve Irwin and David Attenborough. One at the beginning, one at the end to end it. When to kind of open up everything and one to end on. So.
really bad.
I think it would be fine because we'll close the doors, so we should. Yeah. So I don't see what the doors are closed. That'll probably be closed. Or that will definitely be closed. I think. Maybe. See. Go back in 4 minutes. I'll be back.
How much time? 5 minutes? 10 minutes? I'm going to give like an introduction, so we can do it first. We can do it 30 minutes. Who's your friend? Oh, from the Bailes Contigo? Okay. Yeah, we can give her some time. Oh, okay, cool, cool.
Yeah, that's what you come to the point. A big butt. My dad was like, I can see you. Oh, yeah, he said. Should be. It was my brother and dad. She would get one on since she was college too. Maybe my other.
I know my grandparents have to watch.
I can always watch it. That's the thing. It's gonna be on there. So. Make sure I don't do not disturb myself. It's my watch. Yeah. Disturb.
My friend is going to be
To the presentation. Oh, do you? That's okay.
Oye, gracias.
Tú me dices.
No.
Estamos esperando como a las películas.
Yeah.
Está atrasado.
Vamos a empezar cuando quieran.
¿Cómo?
Cuando ustedes quieran.
5 minutos. Todo el tiempo. Vamos a parar aquí, detrás de la mesa. Pero había un montón de gente. 3 personas llegaron a las 8 de la mañana. Okay, every people came this morning at 8. They thought the talks were at 8.
Oh.
Included Victorine.
Oh, really?
Pero vi a Victorino cuando yo llegué, yo vi que iba para allá.
Sí, supuestamente lo que
Cuando era la entrevista se lo vio. Y se fue para allá.
No, estaba
Esperando.
¿Dónde estás? Ay, ando con Luis agarrando
like trying different chargers. I'm like, this is working. I was like, oh shit.
No, es que la gente no eso es así, ya. Yo trato de hacer los sándwiches con la menor información posible por eso, como para que solo vean
What?
lo necesario.
Oh, what's your project? Project you worked on in your time. It'll come easy. I said, don't you know? Well, starting is the hardest part. Once you jump into it. That's what I found yesterday. Is that the hardest part was finding the rhythm. And once you get into that rhythm, just take your time. You don't need to rush or anything like that.
Déjenme ir a traer mis audífonos.
Tiene frío, Lili.
That's one.
If you want, you can put your computer into the first one. We're going to introduce you.
Today.
Okay. So, welcome. So, welcome and thank you for being here for these presentations this morning. Let me introduce myself. My name is Luisa Moreno. I'm the internship coordinator at the Monteverde Institute. And for me and for the Institute's program, the internship program here, it's a pleasure to introduce our two speakers and then Daniela. So Eden, Todd and Marc Mains, these two speakers are interns from Oregon State University, and they have been with us working for 10 weeks, and today they're going to share their experience with us here while they were here, the projects that they were working on. Buenos días a todos, gracias por venir. Yo soy Luisa Moreno, coordinadora de pasantías en el Instituto Monteverde, y para el Instituto Monteverde y para el programa de pasantías es un placer presentar a Eden, Todd y Marc Mains, estudiantes de la Universidad Estatal de Oregon, que han sido pasantes con el Instituto Monteverde por 10 semanas y que hoy van a compartir el trabajo que han hecho durante el tiempo que han estado con nosotros. So after these talks, Daniela Quesada is going to give a talk related with a work that Marc and her did during your internship here. So Daniela is a Monteverde Institute worker. Okay, so first Eden Todd. She is a major in botany, and when she contacted us, she wanted to do something with permaculture, and so she worked at the Valle Escondido program there of permaculture, and she wants to pursue a career in plant pathology and also diseases and what else? So basically plant pathology. So thank you for being here and all yours.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Here is, I'll be sharing with you some of the projects that I've done so far. The first project I've done is a tea tree oil research project. I wanted to see if tea tree oil could be used as a cure for any plant pathogens. Tea tree oil comes from the leaves of the Australian tea tree. It is known to be antibacterial and antifungal. It can be used to treat acne, acne split, lice, nail fungus, and insect bites. You do not want to eat this stuff. Here is some leftover tea tree oil from my experiment. You can pass that around and smell it. The plant disease I decided to look into is called the leaf spot disease. It's a type of fungal infection. You can tell by the black and brown spots on the leaves and sometimes flowers. And the leaves may yellow and drop prematurely and germinate some moisture. For this experiment, I found 4 zinnia plants that were infected with this disease. They were different sizes, different ages, and at different stages of infection. I labeled them as T1, T2, and T3, with the 4th one being the control because it was the biggest and worst infected. I used 3 different concentrations for the 3 plants I treated. One had 1 milliliter tea tree oil, the second had 3, and the third had 5. I just mixed it with water and dumped that into the soil. Let's see what happened. T1, the first plant, 100% of the leaves showed infection, and 3/4 of the flowers showed infection and were really pretty. The second plant, 95% of the leaves, and 5 out of 11 flowers showed the infection. And the third one, which is the smallest one, right here, the smallest one, 100% of it showed infection, and 1 out of 2 flowers were really sad. The second week, when I treated it, T1 showed 8 new spots of new growth. T2 showed 6 new flower buds and 3 new leaf growth. And T3 died. Sad. T1 on the 3rd week showed tons of new growth, and T2 did as well. The flowers bloomed, the dead leaves fell off, and bugs were eating it now. The infection did not get worse, but the plant wasn't as green as it was when I started. I theorized that T3 died because it was the smallest and newest out of all the zinnia plants, and it probably couldn't handle the introduction to tea tree oil. The health of all of them were compromised from the get-go, and it didn't help that I had to pull these out of the ground and put them in separate pots. Not ideal. The control obviously became sicker and died. T1 and T2 turned brown and lost more leaves, which brought in others. And with all this information, I would say that my project is inconclusive. There are too many variables. I pulled these out of the ground, so that could have made them sick. The weather change could have made them sick. And the bugs as well. And any number of things could have gone wrong here. I would need more time to determine any logical conclusion and better equipment. If I were to repeat this, I would probably grow my own plants and infect them myself and then treat them. or collect a culture of the fungus and then add treat your oil to that instead. Here is a special mention of this bee that was with me for every step of my trials. For some reason, he was very attracted to my tea tree oil and was always hanging around. And that's him trying to bury himself in the treated soil. Don't know why, but it is what it is. The other project is an invasive species project. So, invasives can really destroy biodiversity, and it can do it quickly. And they don't have to be labeled as invasive to do so. And it's very important to address these as soon as possible, and you'll see why. At Valle Escondido, they had me look and treat 3 species of concern. I wrote the location of these species in my notes and put them on the map so future interns can find them and pull them out of the ground, just like I did. And so you can see a pattern if there is one. The first plant that I looked for was the inch plant, also called the spiderwort. It is medicinal if you're not allergic, and it's an ornamental plant. People have them in their houses and tanks and so forth. Here is a picture of it overtaking an area on their property. You can see how it leaves very little room for the native plants to grow, and it can have a whole field of these. Very bad. Here's the second one. This is the polka dot plant. It is also an ornamental plant. It's a perennial herbaceous shrub, and it's native to Madagascar. This is supposed to be like an entire field covered in the polka dot plant. It's a horrible picture. But you can see the same pattern where it leaves very little room to grow other things. And then the walking iris is the third. It's an ornamental, and it blooms only lasts a day, and when the flower dies, those stalks touch the ground and sprout new plantlets, and it will keep doing that until you get something like that. This is one of the plants that's not labeled as invasive, but it really does act like one. And it leaves no room for natives, and it's just overall very bad for the ecosystem. Here is a map that I made for the invasive species. Here, there's the hammock garden, and here's the medicinal garden, there's the farm, and here's a biofilter. All of those areas have water runoff, so perhaps that has something to do with it. And also they're near where they plant things as well. When I pull them out, this is a before and after picture. So you can see the inch plant here. There's also polka dot plant somewhere in there. I can't see them. But all that took a couple of hours for me to pull out. Just that small area. It's important to pull them out. Now, disposal is also important, because if you don't dispose these correctly, they'll just regrow in the area you dispose them in. You want to kill it. And the way I killed these plants is with the chickens. They have so many chickens. For some reason, they favor the inch plant other than the other two. Okay, and the next project I did was the seed bank project. They wanted me to take all the seeds they had and organize them. They wanted this because their seeds have a shelf life, and it helps to know which ones need to be tossed and which ones they need to buy more of. Having a spot to store them is also helpful as well, so they don't get lost. That is a picture of the seeds before I organized it. Sadly, I do not have a picture after. I separated the seeds into 5 categories. The 2 at the bottom here, bag 1 and yellow bags, were what they had already. So I just worked with what they had. And then I added my own 3 categories: fruits and veggies, flowers, and greens. And for each bag, I made spreadsheets. Here's an example of one. For the seeds that didn't have any identification number, I give them one. I list the common name, the vat name, the seed supplier, the amount of time it takes for the seeds to sprout and germinate, the depth you'd have to plant them, the spacing each plant needs, the ideal temperature you should plant them at, and the minimum hours of sunlight the plant should have. And I added a date purchase if the information was available. Sadly, for most of these seeds, the date is not available to me. Yeah. And for each bag, I created a corresponding QR code that linked to these spreadsheets. Tape them on the bag. That way you can scan them and see what's in the bag and how to handle the seeds. And some highlights. There's a medical and kitchen garden. For the medical garden, I identified and labeled each medicinal plant that was there. They want to create a tour for their medical garden so that their customers can learn more about it and create more organic medicinal comics. It took a lot of research to figure out what plants were what, and I would say it added up to a couple of weeks worth of work to do that. The other kitchen garden project, they wanted me to create a garden plan for the kitchen. That way they had enough herbs, vegetables, lettuce, and plants for the restaurant when they opened this month. And that also took quite a bit of research. I had to research the distance that each plant needed, the pH of the soil they needed, and what grew well together or not. I would say that also probably took a couple more weeks of research to get that right. But I did it, and I'm very proud of that. Mm-hmm. My favorite was the herbal tonic I made. It was a mix of feverfew, mugwort at the time. You would dehydrate it, smash it into like fine powder, and douse it in vodka, high quality vodka. And I do believe it was used to like clear an infection, but I'm not quite sure about that. I just enjoyed making it. And yeah, thank you all for listening, and thank you to my coworkers for helping me through all this, and for my homestay family for feeding me. Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you again. I haven't seen you a whole lot lately, so it's good to hear what you've been up to.
Yeah.
From my somewhat limited experience with educating myself about permaculture or interacting with permaculture practitioners and teachers, it seems like there's kind of a spectrum of opinion on the use of exotic species. And so I'm curious if you encountered that, if there is some kind of philosophy or commitment at Vicasville, and what your recommendation would be. For example, I don't know their gray water treatment with the reeds that they use. I think those are maybe not native. Here at the Institute, that's something that's been a challenge, for example, using only native species, or at least species that aren't shown to be invasive in gray water treatment and for other uses. Where maybe there's some exotic species that works really well for a certain use, but we know it can become problematic. So I'd just like to know your opinion about that, if you encountered any of that in thinking about permaculture and how you select species that you use in different fields and such.
They use a lot of exotic species. Most of the medical garden is not native, but if the species acts invasive, like if it overtakes an area or overtakes the flower bed, it's probably best to not have that in there. They actually have one medical plant that they're keeping an eye on because it's starting to act like the other invasive species. So it really just does depend. If you introduce an exotic plant to the garden or any biofilter, just keep an eye on it and make sure it doesn't overtake everything else. That's the rule of thumb, honestly. Any other questions? Yeah?
So for your seed bank project, I was just curious, do you know how many species of seeds or different types of plant seeds did you have to deal with? Or if you don't know, just a rough approximation would be fine.
Well, when I was working on this, there was a lot of different types of the same thing. So there were different types of tomatoes, zucchini, cucumbers, lettuce, and a whole bunch of other vegetables. So I couldn't give you an actual number on that, but I would say probably over 100 different types of seeds were cataloged during that time. Any other questions? No? Okay.
Thank you, Eden. Now, Marc Mains. So Marc is a major in fisheries and wildlife, and when he applied to do the internship, he wanted to do something with wildlife. So he's going to talk about a project that he has been doing this past 10 weeks. Marc Mains es un estudiante de pesquerías y vida silvestre. Básicamente vida silvestre es lo que más le interesa a él, especialmente la herpetofauna. Cuando él aplicó para venir, quería hacer un trabajo específicamente con vida silvestre, entonces planeamos un proyecto para que él trabajara con sus conocimientos y aplicara algo que le interesaba. Thank you.
Hello everybody, my name is Marc Mains. Thank you all for attending. I'm really excited to present the information I have here. And hello to you on YouTube. Well, my family, gotta say hi. So we're gonna go ahead and get started here because I've got a lot to get through. First slide is just kind of a table of contents. What I want to go through, I'm going to do a quick introduction about myself so you know kind of who I am. We're going to talk about my tracking mammal project with camera trap footage and a data discussion in 3 different reserves. I worked on bird banding. We banded migrant neotropical species as well as resident species. And then I had a third project of cataloging reptile and amphibian species found in the Crandall Reserve. I want to start first with a quote from one of my heroes, Steve Irwin. If you don't know who he is, he's one of the crazy Australian guys that used to rescue crocodiles and would work with all sorts of dangerous wildlife, and his message was conservation. And he said, if you can't excite people about wildlife, how can you convince them to love, cherish, and protect our wildlife and the environment that they live in? And I hope after this presentation, you get a little bit more excited about wildlife, and you begin to cherish it a bit more, and you want to protect it just a bit more. So again, introduction time. There's me with setting my first trap camera. So I'm a senior student from Oregon State University. I'm majoring in wildlife sciences. I'm also a certified master herpetologist through the Amphibian Foundation, and herpetology is my passion. My goal is to become a wildlife biologist, and I'll be specializing with herpetology, but also with conservation as well. And I've also been in Monteverde here for 10 weeks now, so this has been a fun experience. So we're going to move right into the mammal tracking. The goal is to track mammal movements in different areas of Monteverde. So here's a little bit of an overview of the camera trap process. We had 64 different camera traps that were placed in Crandall, La Calandria, and Nacimiento y Vida reserves from 2021 to 2022. I did use data from the previous interns that set cameras in the Crandall Reserve in 2021. So that data is included in this study, and I thank them for all their hard work. I don't know their names, but thank you. Each time there was movement in front of one of the cameras, the infrared sensor would pick up that camera and it's recorded as an observation. From here on out, I'm going to call every piece of data an observation. So that way that's a key term so everybody knows what that means. Cameras recorded data for about 2 to 3 weeks at a time. It really depended on the situation, and I'll get more into that. Here's a basic map that I made, and it has the 3 reserves. You'll notice that we have Crandall Reserve over here, and there's quite a bit of dots. The green dots are the 2021 interns. Their code name TC. That starts with their camera data. And then the orange dots are all from the cameras that we placed during my study time here. So we have the cameras there in Crandall, all the cameras in La Calandria, and all the cameras in Nacimiento y Vida are all placed this year, so there's no previous data to work with. A little bit more about the camera trap process. The cameras can take either pictures or videos. I'm a fan of videos. Some people like pictures. It's preference. But the pictures are a series of 3 consecutive shots. So it's bam, 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 and then there's a downtime in between, an interval. And then videos record about 10 to 15 seconds worth of data, and then it's a downtime, and then it'll record another one. The objective here was to track mammals, but surprisingly, we did find a lot of bird observations were recorded as well, and I'm going to get into that too. First, we're going to start with Crandall. This is a close-up on Crandall Reserve, and as you can see, there's a lot of information going on here. We've got the Monteverde Institute down at the base, and then all those points, again, the green are from the 2021 interns, and then all the orange is from the cameras we set this year. So, the Crandall Reserve, we had 44 different cameras were placed between 2021 and 2022. 20 of those cameras were placed this year, and 40 different species were observed during this time frame from 2021 to 2022. 24 different species of mammals were observed with over 1,300 different observations. So that's a lot of data. And then 16 species of birds were observed, including 2 near-threatened species. So we're going to get right into some of the footage, some of the observations here. And if you follow Monteverde Institute's social media pages, you should, you would have seen this video. And right here we have a puma that walked in front of one of our cameras and is marking territory, and that's what's happening right there. They like to scrape the ground, and then they'll mark it with either urine or feces, and it kind of just says, hey, this is my area, you know, back off. Because pumas are solitary unless it's a female raising its young, or it's to a female and a male and they're ready to mate. This next piece of footage is really interesting. I think it's even more interesting than the last footage because I found out it's very rare to get pumas on video vocalizing that are in the wild. Most vocalizations from pumas are from captive individuals. So if you pay attention, it's really quick. It's at the very beginning, so I'm going to be quiet, and then hopefully you all hear it. And it's that quick. But we captured that down by the Makina stream, and it's interesting because pumas don't vocalize that often. And this instance right here, I believe, is a female, and she's probably vocalizing to try and either find a mate or announcing that she's present, so they don't really vocalize too much. So I think that's, again, very interesting footage. Again, some more cool puma footage. And I think anytime you can get a puma walking towards the camera, it's amazing footage. Because usually it's them walking away from the camera, and you usually get puma butt. Yeah, I think that's interesting. Here is a spot that Luisa and I found that crosses the trail. It's this down tree instead of across the trail. And we noticed that there were claw marks on this down tree. And we thought, well, let's set up a camera here, because obviously puma and other cats are coming here, and they're scratching to sometimes mark territory, sometimes just to scratch. So I have a bit of footage here, and I want you to pay attention the different pumas here, because I say different pumas because I believe we have multiple pumas, not just one. And check out the body form, if you will, on these, the shape and everything, because you'll definitely be able to tell the difference. So here's the first one. You'll notice it's, looks very healthy, very thick, and it's just your classic example of a puma. The next video. So you can see right here already, this one's a lot thinner, and this is 2 days apart, so it can't be the same puma. This puma's a lot thinner. You can see the musculature on the arms and the shoulder area, and also the ears are different. The ears look like they might be cropped a little bit, which is, I didn't notice that until reviewing the footage when I was making the presentation. And if you pay attention to the next footage after this, you'll see the difference in the ears, what I'm talking about. So this is definitely a separate individual, and I believe it could possibly be a male. These are quick footage, and here's the third one. Again, so you see the ears are upright like the classic puma. Again, a little bit of musculature on the arm and shoulder areas, but it's a bit thicker. And this again was only a few days later, so it can't be the same puma. It's got to be a different one, right? So we know that there's probably at least 2 different puma moving through this area. So that's great, right? So then my project kind of shifted into tracking these pumas. We were excited that we got so much puma footage, and we noticed that it was in certain areas. So based on these observations, like I said, we can say there's at least 2 different puma that either use Crandall as a cut through, or it's part of their territory. I'm not 100% sure on that. More study would have to be done. But it's important too, because pumas are keystone species. So they are alpha predator most of the time in their habitat, their ecosystem, and they control a lot of their prey populations like agouti, coati, things like that. So it's very important to track them and know where they're moving. And then so we redeployed some cameras in the areas of interest to see if we can pinpoint where they were coming from, where they're going, if we could figure out a general area or territory, or maybe if we could figure out if there's a den site nearby. And the results were pretty interesting. This is a quick video. I wanted to include it just because it was part of the redeployment process, and I'm going to just show it as soon as it passes. I'll skip it. But yeah, just a real quick video. But it gets better. This one, I really like this video a lot, and you'll see why. Because the puma looked like it actually looked into the camera, and then it stays right off out of the view. So we don't know what it's doing. It could be sniffing something, maybe it smells something, it's looking for something, we don't know. But it's interesting footage nonetheless. Your typical puma footage. This is down at Wakina Stream, where the one puma vocalized, but this is usually what you get when you see a puma, a lot of their backside. So, but it's still interesting. I like this because one, the puma is right in front of the camera and kind of poses while looking down, and 2, if you see the time, it is 1:30 in the afternoon. Pumas are active during day and night, so there's no set time when they're out, and this is out in the middle of the daytime. And that's just a classic, beautiful example of a puma. It just looks so healthy, and so it's just wonderful footage, I think. Here again we have, this is the same area where that puma was standing. I'm walking towards the camera. So it's really, that's, like I said, when you get a puma walking towards the camera, that's really great footage. So what does this mean? So two things. Observations from 2021 to 2022. We had 51 different puma observations from camera trap data, and 46 of those observations were here in Crandall. So that's impressive if you think about that. So they're definitely using Crandall, either as a cut through or as part of their territory. And then the next is the territory. So we roughly have, with the data we know where the general range of at least one of those pumas probably is. I think it's the female because she was marking her territory, but here is a map. So basically, this is where all the Puma activities took place within that red circle. We have Makina Stream down here, and I think that's key to it, because I think they like to stay towards that, because a lot of prey does come down to the water. But all those camera traps, that's where we had most of our activity. There was only one outlier that was down in C12, which is down at the almost near the beginning of Crandall. But right there is where we had all of our activity. So I think that is definitely worth investigating in the future. And then we have other wildlife capture here in Crandall. A lot of interesting behavior. And then, like I said, I'm a fan of video. I think video is a wonderful way to capture wildlife behavior. I think a picture says 1,000 words, but a video says 1,000,000. So here's some interesting observations I wanted to share with you. This is pretty funny. This is why booties don't climb, because they are no good at it. This, to me, is really interesting. This is social behavior between two peccaries, and I'll explain what's happening. Now, this is really interesting, because what they're doing right here is it equates pretty much to a hug. And what they're actually doing is when two peccary are familiar with each other, they're on good terms, they'll come to each other and they'll rub their heads on the back of their scent glands to get the scent rubbed into their fur. And that's what was happening right there. We have two individuals that are familiar with each other, are probably hang around with each other, and that's their way of greeting each other. So I think that's pretty cool. This is another piece of funny footage I wanted to include. And then we have red-tailed squirrels here that one wanted to play and the other one had nothing to do with it. So pretty funny. And then this isn't anything super interesting. It's just I wanted to showcase another one of the cats that we had caught on film. This is a margay, kind of just walking away from one of our cameras, because we did find all of the big cat species here in Crandall, except for jaguars, of course. So moving on, we're going to move on to the next site, which is La Calandria. We had 15 different cameras that were placed here this year. 42 different species were observed, and then 25 different species of mammals were observed, over 870 different observations. And then 17 species of birds were also observed, including one near-threatened species. And down there is a picture of a jaguarundi that passed in front of the camera. And this is like one of the only clear footages I actually have of jaguarundi. I wish it was video, but it's picture, so a little disappointing to me. Here is a close-up on La Calandria, and that's all those points of the 15 different cameras. It doesn't have all the code names for the cameras I gave them because it's just too much, but all those points, that's 15 of them, and that's what we had set around in La Calandria. So here's some of the activity we caught. And that's a quick video, and that's a paca. And they're nocturnal, and they're very secretive because they were hunted heavily in the area. And so they don't really like being out in the daytime. They don't like being around humans. And that's actually some of the best footage I've gotten of a paca anywhere during this study. All right, again, we have one of the big cats here. This is another margay, and it kind of just walks through. Checking out there. I wanted to include that so you can see that the big cats are in La Calandria as well. And we have another one. Like I said, anytime you get one of the big cats, it's exciting, I think, because they're beautiful, and you don't see them usually out in the day or in person. So seeing them on footage is the next best thing. And then next, we have a puma as well in La Calandria. We didn't have quite as many sightings here, but still, this is the only video we got of one. We have some pictures of one passing in front of the camera several different times, but that's the only video, and I thought that was interesting as well. This, to me, is the best footage we've gotten of hawk-nosed skunks. And it's just kind of foraging, looking around, and I thought it's just interesting to include because it's a species you don't typically see a lot of. And next, this is a gray fox, and this is impressive to me because La Calandria is the only site that we investigated that had both species of canine. So they have coyote and they have gray fox. Nowhere else had gray foxes. This is the only site, and I wanted to include a couple clips of that. They're beautiful beautiful canines. And we have them back in the United States as well. You don't ever see them that often. So it's special to see them on camera, I think. And then one more piece of the gray fox right here, just kind of walking around. So it's in different areas. We have a lot of footage of gray foxes, so they definitely are populated in Localandria. All right, and then next, this is interesting. This is coyotes. And it's interesting behavior that gets captured here, if you watch real closely. And that is actually marking territory. That is part of his pack's territory. Here comes the second one, and this is the second one doing the same thing. So this pack, this is where they hang out, and they are marking their spot so that the other coyotes that aren't in the packs come into their territory. So I think that's really cool that we captured that. And this is just a funny video of a coyote. He got really curious with the camera and actually started to play with it a little bit. So they're very curious canines, which is again another interesting behavior that we caught. So why so much biodiversity here at Localandria? And I had a few different theories about that. And honestly, I think it's due to Localandria being one of the largest sites that we investigated. I believe it's 64 acres. And then there's new forest, old forest growth here, and some of the species can use either one or both. Localandria is also part of a corridor of different patches of forest. So I think a lot of species may come through and pass, so they may not stay in Localandria for long. They might just pass through, or they might come to Localandria and find it suitable and stay, so that's another reason. And then the third reason, I think we have a lot of habitat general species. There's a lot of species here that can use both sets of habitat, as well as the human habitations that are nearby don't really pose an issue. Because they are able to utilize them as well. Some species like opossum, the skunk, coyote, things like that, they are able to utilize all the habitat as well as the human habitations nearby. So next we have other wildlife captured here at Localandria. Again, I think it's fantastic to have video, and we captured species on camera that I didn't think we were ever going to catch on camera, and you'll see here in this next piece. Now, if you can't tell what this is, wait for it to about 15 seconds in. Now he disappears here for a minute, but just wait for it. Wait for it, I promise. There's a payoff you'll get to see. There we go. We get a white-faced capuchin, and they don't typically come down to the ground that often. And when they do, it's usually for fresh water. And this is funny because this is right by a stream that's down there. So more than likely, it came down for some fresh water, and we happened to catch that on camera. And this last one, it's not a special species because you see them everywhere. But to me, this piece of footage is special, and you'll see why here in a second. Yeah, you see a baby with one of its parents, and they're traveling together. And I thought that was special because I had not seen any footage anywhere else of that, so I thought I wanted to include that with Localandria. So next, we're going to move on to the last site that we had camera traps at, Nacimiento y Vida. We had 5 cameras placed here, and 20 different species were observed, 10 different species of mammals, with over about 80 observations, and 10 species of birds. Again, this is a smaller patch. It's a restoration zone, but we had 5 cameras set up in that area, and that's all. This is all new data. Here is the only footage and the only observation we have of a northern raccoon. It was found here down by the stream. Not a rare species by any means, but it's still interesting to note that this is the only site where we found any observations of them. Next, we have another one down by the stream. It's a tyra, a member of the weasel family, and it's just kind of passing through on that trail. For here, we actually got the best footage, I think, of tyra, so we'll see more of them later. And then the big cats are here as well. We got one here that's obviously checking out something up in the trees. And then this is an interesting piece of footage, because this is the only place I think we've gotten footage like this. And the cotis pisotes, I counted 24, and they stay in large bands like this. They're familial bands, And what that means basically is it's groups led by females, mature females, and adolescent females and adolescent males. Mature males don't form these bands with Poti. They stay on their own because they're very territorial, and I guess it wouldn't work out very well. So why such low diversity here? I think it's because we have a limited number of cameras. We only had 5 cameras that were placed for 18 days. And the other issue was there's no place to really put these cameras. This area is a restoration area, and the trees are not mature. So the trees are very thin, and we had a hard time finding places to place cameras to observe wildlife. Second is the habitat. We could only set cameras in the restoration areas. There is a stream and waterfall area that is there, and it was very treacherous. We attempted to try and do it, but we felt like we would have put ourselves in danger. So we did not enter that area or place any real cameras there. We placed 1 camera at the entrance of it, but that's it. And then the area is also bordered by active farmland and pastures. So that probably plays a role in what species move through the area as well. So we did catch some interesting behavior here as well. And then there's a species that interacted with the camera to the point where Luisa and I thought that somebody tried to steal some of our cameras. The cords were all undone, they were shifted, you could tell something or somebody was messing with it, so we were very angry, thinking that somebody tried to steal our cameras, and it turns out it wasn't a person. And you'll watch very closely. It's great, these coyotes are extremely red in their fur, and I love that. Other places they aren't, they're mostly gray. Oh, and it gets better. This isn't it. And as you can see, he's very interested in what's going on with the camera. And this continues for a while. He really tries to, he shifted the view, you can see. He really tried to get a hold of this camera. And eventually he gives up, but he gave it his best effort. He almost untied it, but it's locked still. He wouldn't have been able to get it, but yeah, he gave it his best shot. And that's not the only instance of this here, because next we have this piece of footage. As you see, the camera shifts dramatically. And what's great about this piece is it's playful behavior. He doesn't really care too much about the camera. He cares about one thing with the camera. You'll see here in a minute. And that's part of our Python board that's attached to our camera. He wants to use it as a chew toy. So I think that's really fantastic behavior. You'll see how playful that they are and how inquisitive that they are. Next is what I believe is territorial behavior of a coati. And like I said before, males travel by themselves. And this male was by himself until another one comes. And he is not happy. He's telling them to back off. And I didn't include the next piece of footage. That male does walk back in this territory and kind of stand there and defends it. But that's a lot of guajava down there, so that's probably his spot. And then this is another interesting piece of footage of a teira, and it's actually eating fruit. You don't think of teira really as fruit eaters, but they're omnivorous. They eat a lot of fruit actually, and he took a nice big chunk out of that guajava, which is interesting behavior. Next, I want to focus on some hunting behavior from this skunk, and you'll see it's pretty funny actually. It gets better. And what that skunk is doing, he probably scared out a lizard or a frog, maybe a mouse out of the weeds there, and he's pouncing on it to try and pin it so he can get into it and start trying to eat it. So it's interesting hunting behavior. And then last, I want to include one more piece of coyote footage. This coyote knows the camera's here, and he's coming to mess with it, but this one stops for a break. But yeah, so there's the last piece of footage I wanted to share there. So interestingly, we found that trap cameras are great for picking up bird species. Our trap cameras from the 2021 data through now, we have a total of 590 total observations across all 3 sites. And I think it opens a doorway for another way for avian conservation to be affected by another method. We captured 2 near-threatened species on camera, and this kind of data can be used to supply distributions, behavior, and habitat usages, and all sorts of other observations you can take from this. And I wanted to include 2 pieces. This is one of the near-threatened species. This is a Localandria, but these were at all 3 sites. This is a wood thrush, and it's a migratory species whose population is in decline. So it's spending the winter down here, and then it's going to go back up in the spring, March, April, back up to the United States, but its populations are struggling. But here you see it's foraging, which is great. You see that this is where they're using this area for food at least. And then this next species that I'm going to show is a key species here in the area. We got some black guan footage, and they're a key species here in Monteverde because they are great seed dispersers. They do eat a lot of different ficus, figs, and fruit, and they do spread that through their excrement in different areas. So here is just the wildlife observed. This is kind of an overview of Crandall, Localandria, Nacimiento y Vida. The blue is mammals and the orange is birds. And you'll see that Crandall and Localandria are kind of neck and neck. Localandria has slightly a bit more in terms of biodiversity that we captured. And then Nacimiento y Vida is pretty much dead even with itself and the lowest. And again, we went over why I think that's why the data was shown like that. So total species observed across all data, we had 29 different species of mammals, 2,261 total observations. There's 24 species of birds, 590 total observations, and then it comes to a total of 53 different species that were observed. And now I'm going to show you, actually no, that comes later, I apologize, what to do with the data. So what I did is I took all 4,665 observations, and I uploaded it to a camera software site called Agouti, which is pretty funny even though it's a European site. So what that meant is I took all that data, I uploaded it to that website, and then I had to go through and I had to annotate all of the footage manually, one by one. And I marked the location of each with GPS coordinates. And then I was able to take that data and export it into CSV files, and that can be used in different programs like Excel, RStudio. And what that data can tell us is it can tell us the number of identified species, it can tell us the number of observations, the number of individuals that we observed. It could give us a relative abundance index, which is basically how common or rare a species is compared to the other species. And we can also use relative abundance index based on the number of individuals that we've observed. And here's what I was talking about earlier. This is just a table of all the different mammal species that we had found and where the red X's indicate where they were found. And there was 29 different species. And again, the red X's show you exactly where the species were found. You'll see that Crandall and Localandria have a lot of red X's, and Nacimiento y Vida only has a few. And again, more data is needed from there, and hopefully in the future we can get some more. So moving forward, I hope that future interns can take this data, and I hope they can add to it. I think that there's a lot of information we can get here from this kind of data. We can get habitat usage for different species. We can get distributions of different species. Relative abundance, again, behavioral studies can be done, and there's even more data we can pull from this. The next part is bird banding. This was real quick. This is we have banded birds, neotropical migrant species, a resident bird species here in Crandall. We're part of the MASI program here at the Institute, and it's an international network of bird monitoring stations across 22 different countries and 250 different stations. Bird banding occurs twice a year, once in March when the migrant species leave, and once in November when the migrant species come into the area. All information is sent back to the bird population, the Institute of Bird Populations in California, and they keep track of the neotropical migrant species. So the data helps collected, it helps track what types of factors and conditions affect avian persistence on their wintering grounds. It can help with figuring out where problems are more prevalent, either on their wintering grounds or their breeding grounds. It helps us figure out what is causing bird population declines, and it also helps with figuring out if there's a relationship with population changes with weather climate, habitat loss, or wintering grounds. Spoiler alert, it's all of those things. And then we also can use that data to figure out how to slow or stop these declines. So how many birds did we band? We had 13 different nest nets set up in different locations in Crandall Reserve. We opened those nets from 6 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. And we banded over 100 different birds in 5 days. And that doesn't sound like a whole lot, but keep in mind that's 5 days. And pictured there is a black-faced solitary that we had banded, a resident species. So we ended up catching a total of 31 different species of birds. We processed them, we banded them, then we released them. 5 of those species were migrant species, and 26 were residents. And there's one of the birds I processed that is a resident species, an olive-streaked flycatcher. And here's some pictures of a few migrant species that we banded. On the left is a summer tanager. In the middle, we have a black-throated green warbler, and on the right, a personal favorite of mine are ovenbirds. And last, I'll go over a reptile and amphibians project I had in Crandall. I had to try and catalog as many species as I could find. I spent time exploring Crandall Reserve on and off the trails. The goal was, again, to find as many reptiles and amphibians as I could, species as I could find and catalog them. Sadly, I only was able to go out twice because the other projects demanded more of my time. But I did find some things while I was out. I found 3 different species of lizards. I found a wet forest anole, a ground anole, and green spiny lizards. And there's a terrible picture of a ground anole from my cell phone. I'm a wildlife photographer, and it shames me to put that up there because it's terrible quality. Again, I found 3 species of frogs as well. We have a litter frog, the common rain frog, and Worsowitch's frog. Terrible picture of a Worsowitch's frog with my cell phone. Again, it's embarrassing to me to put that up here, but that's what, with my professional equipment, that's a green spiny lizard, and that to me is a fantastic picture, and I just wanted to show you I'm not a terrible photographer. So I just want to end this with special thanks to some people. I want to thank Luisa. She was my supervisor for all of her hard work, all her knowledge, all her training. She helped me with a lot of everything, all my projects, especially the bird banding. I learned a lot from her. I'd like to thank Victor. He was instrumental in La Calandria. He allowed us to come in and set camera traps to explore, and I appreciate that. And he also helped during the bird banding and taught me some techniques in bird banding that I won't forget. Diego, the bird master, which I don't think he's here, he taught me a lot during the bird banding, a lot of different techniques that I used and worked really well. I want to thank my homestay family, Sylvia, Alan, and the boys. You guys have been wonderful. I feel like part of the family here, and you took great care of me, and I'll never forget that. I want to thank the Monteverde Institute staff, everybody for helping me daily on accomplishing all my goals. I appreciate that. Everybody's friendly. And it was great working here. And then anybody else I had the pleasure of meeting and talking with, I want to thank them because I always love to stop and talk. And I'm going to end with a quote from another one of my heroes, from Sir David Attenborough. He says, "It's surely our responsibility to do everything within our power to create a planet that provides a home, not just for us, but for all life on Earth." And that is 100% true. It is our responsibility to maintain ecosystems, environments, so that not that it just benefits us, but benefits all life. So I think that is a very important point made. And with that, thank you all for listening to me talk for a long time. I apologize I went a little longer, but if you have any questions, I can address them now. Or if not, I have contact information up there as well, where you can find me online and my email. So thank you.
I'm wondering, there is an on-CJ report for Crandall. Was that you, or was it from before?
That was from the 2021 interns. Yeah, that was photographic evidence from them. I unfortunately did not find one, I think, through my data, but I would have loved to. But yeah, no.
It would be interesting to see about that, because that is such a rare species, and the reports for Monteverde are like non-existent.
Right. Yeah.
So if you can confirm that that's actually an on-CJ, it would be worth writing a paper.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
There's only one I'm aware of.
Okay.
So it would be really, really interesting to look into that.
Okay, I would have to definitely 100% confirm that, because the information is all actually available online to the public on Agouti. You can find our project in there. It's got a picture, actually a picture of an Agouti, and it has my project name on there. And you'll be able to find that, and you can actually view all the camera data from the public as well.
Okay.
So that it is in there. But I believe I did remember seeing the footage from 2021 interns, but I unfortunately didn't capture that.
And another thing is just a comment that is interesting. You mentioned about the monkeys being on the ground, because I remember Jordan also being very surprised about that.
Right.
But Jordan also got a lot of footage of white-faced monkeys on the ground along the corridor. And me too, when I was monitoring Monteverdenses.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm wondering why they go to the ground so much
Right.
here, and apparently they shouldn't. To me, I was surprised to hear that they were not supposed to be on the ground that
Yeah.
much because, but yeah, just
no.
a comment. That,
No, definitely,
yeah, there's.
But the thing is, I think they avoid the ground because they're quite vulnerable to predation.
Sure.
So, to me, it's a risk anytime they come to the ground. I think it's a calculated risk that they either, like I said, it's mostly to find water, but it might be to pass between corridors. Maybe if where one path corresponds, if it wants to move to another path, they have to move via the ground. So,
Yeah, with
it's
Jordan they
interesting.
came down to pick up fruits.
So, okay,
But
there's that,
with me, I think it was to eat the insects, like the larvae
The
growing
larvae
on
and
the
stuff.
fruits.
Okay.
So, yeah, I guess if it is worth,
Yeah.
worth risking.
Risking, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
Any other questions? Sure.
Well, actually, about the monkeys, we have a camera trap program at the rainforest at the South Pacific of Costa Rica, and we mostly see that behavior in dry season.
Okay.
So we get there is a kind of tendency about what you were saying about the water.
Mm-hmm.
There they have like less resources during rainy season, so they have to go down to drink some water. And also, that is the only moment when we see them crossing the river and playing in the river.
Oh, wow.
Though.
Okay.
So maybe it can be kind of related with
Yeah.
that. We never see them like eating from underground. Maybe happens, but we didn't get them. But also, we saw there the females when they have babies, they feel more confidence if they don't have like the bridge or the branch connections
Mm-hmm.
to go underground and
Oh, wow.
cross. So maybe that can be another thing.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, definitely.
Like realize who is crossing. If it's like a juvenile, if it's a mom, if when you look up, the trail is too large, like too wide, and then they don't have a safe connection.
Right.
So that also can.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's worth investigating. The more footage that you can collect, I think, showing these different behaviors is great because that adds to the bank of knowledge of why they come to the ground, why they'll take these risks, and it's just great behavioral data to collect and have that information for future studies if somebody does want to study something specific like that. So I think, yeah, it's wonderful information. It's wonderful to hear too. So thank you. Any other questions? No? All right. Well, that's it. Thank you again for allowing me to talk for a long time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, you too.
Mark,
Oh, yeah.
And now we have the talk, Daniela's talk, and she's going to tell you more about the project that she did with Marc's help. Daniela Quesada, all yours. Ahora Daniela, bueno, ahora Daniela va a hablar un poquito sobre, perdón, se me olvidó traducir eso, un poquito sobre un proyecto que hizo junto con Marc. Marc le ayudó con las cámaras y nos va a contar un poquito de este proyecto.
Is that this one?
Yeah. Right.
This one? I'm not sure on the screen.
Buenos días a todos y todas. Sí, yo soy Daniela Quesada. He estado involucrada con árboles, con el Instituto Monteverde, primero con el Ocotea monteverdensis y más recientemente empezamos con otras 10 especies de árboles amenazados en la zona, intentando con los primeros pasos de ir recopilando información sobre la ecología de estas especies, sobre cuáles son las historias que podemos contar sobre estas especies para poder pensar en un plan de educación también para estos otros árboles, como tal vez han visto un poco el trabajo que hemos hecho con mi Ocotea, de sensibilización, de contar un poco sobre la ecología. Entonces, con estas otras especies estamos en esos primeros pasos de primero nosotros aprender sobre los árboles para luego poder como comunicar, ¿verdad? Entonces, en ese tema, hace poquito, justo cuando Marc llegó por aquí, estábamos hablando sobre las bellotas de los robles que estaban cayendo ya hace un par de semanas, específicamente de Quercus insignis, y decidimos aprovechar la ayuda de Marc y la disponibilidad de las cámaras trampa para monitorear quiénes llegaban a comer las bellotas al suelo y intentar pues entender un poco también quiénes son las especies posibles dispersoras de este árbol. El Quercus insignis o roble encino está dentro de la familia de las fagáceas, es una especie que está amenazada y que es de mucha importancia para la conservación, especialmente en Monteverde. Debra me contaba que son poquitos los árboles que hay y en realidad siempre es como es complicadito conseguir semillas para el vivero. Y de hecho Lorenzo me estaba contando que las que se llevaron para la calandria algo se las está comiendo, entonces para el próximo año yo creo que no vamos a tener casi cuerpos y yo creo que es la paca que salió en las cámaras de Marc. Estábamos con eso. Bueno, entonces esta especie de roble en específico se distribuye, bueno, de México hasta parte de Panamá. En realidad tiene una distribución pequeña y bastante hacia el centro de América. Nosotros aquí encontramos, bueno, escogimos dos árboles que tenían bellotas, están muy cerca uno del otro, uno está como por acá, pusimos la cámara viendo hacia arriba, esa es una parte como abierta del sendero, y en realidad el otro está en esa montañita que se ve ahí atrás, entonces ¿qué pueden haber? Unos 50 metros lo más, están bien cerquita los dos árboles. El sitio 1 yo le puse, es un poco más abierto, está como en el sendero, hay menos vegetación, y el sitio 2 de hecho ya está mal, era un poco más cerrado, había más vegetación en el sotobosque. Y bueno, de hecho, Iden nos estaba acompañando también y cuando eso todavía estaba Randy en sus últimos días y por ahí él fue el que me puso en contacto con ellos y con él instalamos las cámaras. Algo que me pareció interesante es que el sitio más abierto, el sitio 1, que voy a seguir representando en anaranjado, tuvo menos interacciones con bellotas, o bueno, menos registros del todo que el de sotobosque. Pero ahora les voy a ir contando un poquito más, pero eso me pareció interesante. Simplemente voy a decir que ahorita nada más voy a mostrar resultados que obtuvimos, pero no hemos como analizado esto. La idea con Marc es después como leer un poquito más de bibliografía y poder ojalá escribir una entrada de blog para el instituto haciendo un poquito más de análisis de estos resultados. Hoy simplemente quería mostrarles un poquito lo que Marc me ayudó a procesar, también para agradecerle a Marc por toda su ayuda y para mostrarles a ustedes un poquito también como toda esta información que él fue generando. Nosotros instalamos las cámaras, se quedaron ahí más o menos 3 semanas, del 14 de octubre al 9 de noviembre. Marc se encargó de revisarlas, de bajar toda la información y de simplemente me envió unos Exceles con la información que él revisó y fue una maravilla, porque cuando yo lo hice como monteverdensis, ahí está toda la información y yo no la podía analizar porque es mucho trabajo. Entonces, Mark, muchas gracias. Thank you so much for such an amazing job. It was so easy to work with the files like that. En total fueron 287 registros, o sea, como un video donde sale un animal, porque pueden haber otros registros donde no sale nada. 18 especies se registraron, de esas eran 9 mamíferos y 9 aves también. Y luego Mark me ayudó a revisar, ¿verdad? Él me revisó toda esa información y me separó por diferentes comportamientos. Entonces uno era si el animal estaba comiéndose una bellota, el otro era si se la estaba llevando, el otro era si estaba como rebuscando en el suelo, otro era si simplemente pasaba por la cámara, y el último era como otros comportamientos, que de hecho ahí estaban las ardillitas que estaban como con la colita ahí medias. Entonces, de todos esos registros yo solamente tomé en cuenta las especies que podían estar teniendo una interacción directa con las bellotas o que podían estar viniendo a buscar bellotas. Entre esas estaban la guatusa, que fue la que hizo más registros, esas tienden a pasar mucho enfrente de la cámara. Después seguían las ardillitas, que de hecho Mark les enseñó ahora algunos videos de eso. Y por último, unos ratoncitos que es, bueno, peroniscus mexicanos, de acuerdo aquí con el caballero Chinchilla. Muchísimas gracias por su ayuda para identificar también esos ratoncitos. Entonces, las interacciones con bellotas básicamente eran con estas 3 especies de mamíferos. Entonces, de aquí en adelante me voy a referir solo a esos. Los demás eran como que estaban ahí pasando, o pajaritos que llegaban a rebuscar y tal vez no estaban interactuando por lo menos directamente con las bellotas. Entonces, también hubo diferencia, me pareció curioso, de estos roedores. En el sitio 1, por ejemplo, solo pasando había más reportes de ratones que de otra cosa, y en el sitio 2, que era más cerrado, ahí no pasaron ratones en ningún momento. Entonces hay como una diferencia también de como cuál depredador de semilla estaba en cuál árbol, y yo no estoy segura si era por el tipo de cobertura o si será que ellos se desplazan entre ellos, porque por ejemplo los que estaban como buscando más comida, que ya activamente como buscando en el suelo, en el sitio 1 que era más abierto, eran principalmente las ardillas, y en el sitio 2 principalmente las guatusas. Entonces como que ahí tienen un jueguito entre ellos, y ya como activamente comiendo también en la parte más abierta principalmente eran las ardillas, Cirrus granatensis específicamente, y en la parte más cerrada eran principalmente guatusas. Y de hecho solo tuvimos comiendo del ratoncito, a pesar de que sí pasaba muchas veces por enfrente de la cámara, comiendo solo tuvimos un registro. Pero es muy probable que sí estuvieran comiendo más, es solo que no los capturamos en el acto. Entonces, lo que quería compartirles, en realidad mi presentación es súper cortita, de lo que analicé así rápidamente, ¿verdad? De las semillas que recogían las guatusas, digamos, de esas 11 se las comieron, ¿verdad? Y también hubo registros, las guatusas tienden a hacer huequitos, esconder las semillas para comer después, pero ellas tienen muy mala memoria, entonces después ojalá se olvidan, y entonces eso yo lo cuento como una dispersión. Entonces, de las 11 que ellas agarraron que eran 15 que agarraron, 4 las enterraron y las otras 11 se las devoraron, ¿verdad? Entonces hay digamos que un 27% de dispersión de las semillas, y el resto son depredadas. La cosa es que a mí me parece interesante porque yo hice este mismo ejercicio con monteverdensis, y si bien no he analizado como los datos de esta manera porque no tenía Mark en ese momento, con monteverdensis pasa algo muy diferente, porque esa fruta tiene pulpa. Entonces la guatusa llega, se come la pulpa y entierra la semilla. Y yo tenía montones de registros de las guatusas enterrando las semillas. Ya hacia el final de la cosecha, cuando ya las frutas no tienen pulpa, ellas empiezan a devorar semillas. Pero ya hubo muchas que se dispersaron. Pero estas bellotas, como no tienen pulpa, como que no tienen tanto esa opción, ¿verdad? Hay más depredación. Entonces, para mí, digamos, lo que me dice es que en el caso de los puercos, pues esta presión por depredación, que son sus únicos dispersores a la vez, pues es un poco, ocupan algo de ayuda, yendo a recogerlos para germinar, pero no llevándolos a la calandria porque ya se los comen también. Y en cuanto a las ardillas, anda similar el asunto. Ellas recogieron 15 también, de esas se llevaron 2, yo las tomé como dispersión, pero no sé si se las comerían después. Las ardillas también tienden a guardar comida para después. Y el resto, las otras 13 se las depredaron. Entonces, nada, eso sería todo lo que tengo para mostrarles por ahora. Nada más me parece como interesante ver que los principales animales que comen estas bellotas o interactúan con ellos son depredadores de semillas, son roedores, guatusas principalmente, luego las ardillas y finalmente los ratoncitos, y que por lo menos por lo que nosotros pudimos registrar en tan poquito tiempo, como que las guatusas y las ardillas podrían ser uno de los principales dispersores de esos árboles acá. Pero claro que sería muy bueno replicar esto más, ¿verdad? En más árboles también, en más sitios diferentes, porque esto fue simplemente como un experimento, ¿verdad? Pero un experimento que aunque fuera cortito, creo que ya nos va arrojando información muy interesante también sobre la ecología de la especie, la importancia del árbol para estas otras especies y de estas especies para el árbol. No sé si tienen alguna pregunta.
No creo que tengo la respuesta de qué se está comiendo las semillas de aquí arriba.
Ajá.
Porque en la calandria, en la cámara apareció una guatusa, pero los árboles están en el suelo. Aquí están en las camas y se las comieron todas. Eso.
Las ardillas
Sí,
se suben a las camas también.
Las bolsitas están en las camas. Pues las guatusas no suben ahí. Bueno, Marc demostró que las guatusas no suben a los árboles.
Marc demostró que las guatusas no suben.
Entonces deben ser las ardillas, porque
Y
viendo
abajo,
la información.
quién sabe si las ardillas depredarán, o sea, no sé
Es
si...
que bueno, en la cámara lo que aparecieron fueron guatusas. Y probable también. Que pudiera haber ardillas.
Habría que cerrar con algún tipo de malla.
Sí, aquí habría que cerrar, fue lo que estaba hablando Lorenzo, de cerrar aquí, porque no dejaron ni una. Y ahí hay unas en una cama de germinación, que es probable que si no se hace algo se lo va a comer. Pero entonces sí son estas.
Las ardillitas, granatensis.
Habría que ver porque también de estas que, digamos, aquí la depredación es bien alta, pero de ese 13% que queda, ¿qué se comen después? Porque aquí se comieron los arbolitos, ¿sí? Se comen el árbol y después se comen la semilla. Sí, entonces no hay no queda nada.
Es que esa es la cosa.
Yo pienso que no queda nada, porque
sí.
si no tuvieron más cuerpos, bueno, y también los humanos cambiaron varios.
Sí, porque es un árbol que yo creo que naturalmente sus posibilidades de ser dispersado y regenerarse son bien bajas.
Bien bajas.
Entonces, yo creo que eso es por la razón que no tenemos casi robles aquí, ¿verdad? Con monteverdenses hay muchos dispersores como las pavas, los monos y así, que van a tirar la semilla entera, porque vienen por la pulpa, no por la semilla. Pero con los robles vienen que no tienen pulpa, sí. Entonces es inevitablemente la semilla. ¿Y qué más lo va a dispersar? No estoy segura si hay animales que se tragarían la semilla entera difícilmente. Luisa tenía...
Sí, me llama la atención que no aparecieran chanchos de monte. ahí,
Ajá.
porque yo he pasado por ahí varias veces el año pasado y ahí estaban, o sea,
Este
en el
año.
punto donde estaban comiendo.
Yo
Esa es la-
estuve
ese carrusel está
leyendo,
por la-
me parece que leí así por encimita en otro lugar que los jabalíes podían dispersar algunas semillas. Supongo que depende del tamaño de la bellota, tal vez se las tragan enteras. Y yo me preguntaba si aquí los chanchos de monte podían ejercer la misma función, de repente por ahí tragarse alguna entera y dispersarlo. Pero por eso digo que sería interesante más adelante seguir poniendo cámaras, porque también fueron solo 3 semanas, entonces puede ser que usted sí haya visto como que pasaron por ahí, pero que cuando nosotros pusimos las cámaras, ¿no?
No, es que estaban ahí comiendo, o
Este
sea,
año-
yo
este
sabía
año
que estaban
estaban
ahí
Los que
Sí.
van ahí, yo los vi uno por lo menos.
Sí,
comiendo.
porque
En la
no-
8, en la cámara, en la red 8, es donde pusieron esta cámara.
Es que me extraña mucho porque realmente Mark no consiguió muchos chanchos
En las
cámaras
cámaras.
tampoco.
Y ellos sí estaban bajando.
Really, Mark, did you get any records in your cameras?
Not for this particular project now.
Fed,
Sí, yo tengo 2 preguntas. Una, tal vez, no sé si usted o quienes están acá, ¿han visto carpinteros llevándose semillas de roble? No.
no, bueno, yo nunca y en los videos no habían, las aves que llegaban como a comerse insectitos que estaban por ahí, no estaban interactuando con las bellotas. Pero yo he visto en otros lados que los jays, los córvidos, dispersan, pero quién sabe aquí.
Y quería como aclarar porque no entendí. Cuando aparecen los ratones en las cámaras, ¿aparecen como llevando semillas de roble o
No.
solo pasan por ahí?
Solo pasan, solo hubo uno que estaba comiéndose una. Todos los demás registros era solo pasando, ni quedándose a forrajear ni nada, solo como pasando. Tal vez, y era en la cámara, en una de las cámaras, entonces tal vez fuera como su trillo.
Y en la calandria al menos es bastante común los heteromis, que son muy comedores de semillas de todo. Entonces me llama la atención, ¿solamente son peromiscus los que vieron o también hay de los otros? No.
Buena pregunta, eso es una respuesta que usted nos puede dar. Luego hay que revisar con más detenimiento, porque sí, cuando yo trabajé con monteverdenses, que también alguien más experto en ratones me ayudó a revisar, la mayoría eran heteromis. Y ahí sí se veía muy claro donde recogían las semillas y se las guardaban en los cachetillos y se iban. Yo no he tenido chance de ver con detenimiento cada uno de los videos. Puede ser que haya otra especie por ahí, porque es bastante complicado con los ratones, pero luego tenemos que darnos a la tarea de revisar con más detenimiento esos ratoncitos, a ver si de verdad todos son peromiscus o si hay algunos heteromis.
Es posible que haya heteromis. Y eso, si se lleva la semilla en los abatones, se la llevan y no necesariamente la van a depredar, puede ser que hagan la misma dispersión. Ahí sí sería como más complicado. No se puede decir categóricamente que si se las metieron en cachete, pero son grandes. Esta es una cosa grande, ¿no?
Sí, estas son semillas grandes. Porque
pues,
sí, de monteverdenses yo veía los heteromis, hay un video donde se meten hasta 4, pero de estas yo pienso que podrían llevarse tal vez 2, son como el doble de un monteverdenses. Entonces, sí, lo complicado tanto con las ardillas como con los ratones es que se las llevan y uno puede sugerir, tal vez algunas de esas son dispersadas, pero el destino final, ni idea, ¿verdad? Sería muy interesante que próximos pasantes hagan algunos proyectos por ahí para medir depredación y germinación, no sé cómo. Bueno, ahí seguimos hablando entonces, cualquier otra cosa, pero por ahora eso es lo que tenemos, ahí les vamos a contar más cuando hayamos como revisado un poquito más el material. Cualquier pregunta, estamos a la orden. Muchas gracias por el espacio.
Gracias, Daniela.
For your help y gracias al instituto también por todo el apoyo.
gracias a todos por participar y venir. Hay un refrigerio aquí a la par. Entonces pueden pasar adelante para despedir a Aiden y a Mark. There's a refreshment over there. It's like a farewell.
Oh, okay.